The snow was the only thing still touching her. Not her husband, not another human being, not a single one of the 300 people who had walked past the main entrance of Grand Central Terminal in the last 11 minutes. Just the snow, falling on her face, catching in her eyelashes, building a thin white layer on her red dress as if the city itself was trying to bury her before she was dead. Naomi Carter was lying on her back on the frozen sidewalk outside the most famous train station in the world, 8 months pregnant, in a snowstorm at 11 o'clock on a Thursday night in December. Her phone had slipped from her hand when she fell. It lay face down in the snow beside her bag, its screen cracked, still glowing. The last thing her fingers had done before consciousness left was press a contact. Any contact, the wrong contact, a number she didn't recognize that her thumb had grazed on its way to 911. The call connected. It rang once. A voicemail message played in Korean. Then the phone recorded 11 minutes of snow and silence and the sound of a woman breathing. Shallow, fading, but breathing. While 300 people walked past her without stopping. Minute 12 was when the black Bentley pulled to the curb. Park Jae-won had been 3 blocks away. His driver was navigating the storm, heading south toward the financial district, when Chen, Jae-won's head of security, riding in the front seat, held up his phone. "Sir, an unknown call came into your private line. 90 seconds, no voice, just background noise." Jae-won didn't look up from his tablet. "Trace it." Already traced. The call originated from a phone registered to a Naomi Carter. Current GPS location, outside Grand Central Terminal, main entrance. And? The phone hasn't moved in 11 minutes. Jae-won looked up. He knew what an unmoving phone in a snowstorm meant. He'd grown up in Incheon, where winters could bury a person in 20 minutes. Where his mother had. "Stop the car." The Bentley pulled over. Jae-won stepped into the storm. The snow hit him sideways, horizontal, vindictive. He buttoned his coat and walked north toward Grand Central, with Chen behind him. They found her at 11:12 p.m. She was lying on her side, one arm curled under her head, the other wrapped around her belly. Her red dress was soaked through. Her lips had a blue tint that made Jae-won's blood go cold. A small bag lay beside her. Her phone, cracked, still glowing, still connected to his voicemail. People walked past. A man in a business suit stepped around her like she was a construction cone. A couple argued about dinner reservations 6 feet from her body. Jae-won knelt in the snow. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Pulse. There. Faint, irregular. He put his hand on her belly and felt, through the wet fabric, through the cold, a kick. Hard. Angry. Alive. The baby was alive. Something in Jae-won's chest, something that had been locked since Incheon, since the winter he was 12, since the call that came too late, cracked open. "Chen, call Mount Sinai. Tell them I'm bringing a pregnant woman with hypothermia. Tell them to have a team ready. Tell them my name." Chen was already dialing. Jae-won pulled off his coat, a coat that cost $4,000 and had been tailored in Milan, and wrapped it around Naomi. He lifted her from the snow. She weighed nothing. She weighed everything. Her eyes fluttered. Not open, not closed. Somewhere between. Her lips moved. "Don't take my baby." The words were barely air, directed at no one, at everyone, at the man who had left her here. "No one is taking your baby," Jae-won said. His voice was steady, but his hands were not. "I've got you. I've got you both." He carried her to the Bentley. Chen opened the door. Jae-won slid into the back seat with her still in his arms because putting her down required a level of letting go that his body refused to perform. The car moved through the storm toward Mount Sinai. Naomi's head rested against his chest. Snow melted from her hair onto his shirt. Her breathing was shallow but present, and the baby kicked again. Against his forearm, against the coat wrapped around her. Persistent, demanding. A small life insisting on its own existence with the only language it had. Jae-won held them both and watched the city blur past through snow-streaked windows. And he made a promise he would spend the next year proving he meant. 6 hours before she collapsed, Naomi Carter was sitting in the passenger seat of her husband's car, watching him end their marriage with the efficiency of a man canceling a subscription. "I've had your things sent to your mother's," Brandon said. His voice was the particular kind of calm that only men who have rehearsed cruelty can achieve. "Your clothes, your books, whatever was in the closet. Everything else stays." "Brandon." Naomi's hand was on her belly. 8 months. The baby was due in 4 weeks. "We can talk about this. Whatever's happened, we can—" "There's nothing to talk about. I've met someone. It's been going on for a while. It doesn't matter. The point is, this isn't working, and I need to move on before the baby complicates things legally." "Before the baby complicates things." Naomi repeated the words as if tasting something rotten. "Our baby. My career can't absorb a child right now. The partnership vote is in March. Hartley made it clear. He needs commitment, not complications." "So your unborn child is a complication?" "Naomi, don't be dramatic." He pulled the car up to Grand Central Terminal. Not to her mother's apartment in Queens. Not to a hotel. Not to anywhere warm or safe or human. He pulled up to a train station in the middle of a snowstorm and unlocked the doors. "Take the train to your mother's. I'll have my lawyer send the papers next week." Naomi stared at him. 8 years. They had been together for 8 years. She had supported him through law school, through 2 failed bar exams, through the clerkship that required her to work double shifts to cover rent. She had given him everything: her money, her time, her belief. And he was dropping her at a train station in December like a passenger whose fare had expired. "Brandon, it's 11 degrees outside. I'm 8 months pregnant. You can't—" "Naomi." His hand was on the gear shift. His foot was on the brake. He was already leaving. "This is what's happening. I'm sorry it's hard, but I need you to get out of the car." She got out of the car. She stood on the sidewalk with her bag and her phone and her unborn child and watched the taillights of her husband's car disappear into the snow. And she understood, with the quiet, devastating clarity of a woman who has finally stopped lying to herself, that she had never mattered to him. Not as a wife, not as a partner, not as the mother of his child. She had mattered only as long as she was useful, and her usefulness had expired. The cold hit her immediately. Her coat was in the car. Brandon had not given her time to grab it. She walked toward the terminal entrance. The doors were locked. Construction, renovation, reduced winter hours. A sign directed passengers to a side entrance 2 blocks away. 2 blocks, in a snowstorm. 8 months pregnant, no coat. She made it 1 block before her vision blurred. 1.5 blocks before her legs buckled. She reached for the railing outside the main entrance and missed. The last thing she felt before the ground was the baby kicking, hard, insistent, alive, as if it knew what was happening and was protesting on behalf of them both. Mount Sinai's trauma team was waiting at the ambulance entrance when the Bentley arrived. J1 had called ahead with his name, and his name rearranged hospitals the way it rearranged everything else. They took Naomi from his arms. This time he let them, but he walked beside the gurney, his hand on the railing, his eyes on her face. "Core temperature 94 degrees, a nurse called out. "Moderate hypothermia. Fetal heart rate is stable." "Her name is Naomi Carter," J1 said. "She's 8 months pregnant. I found her outside Grand Central. I don't know how long she was on the ground." "Are you family?" "I'm the person who found her." "Sir, we can only allow family." "I'm not leaving." He said it the way he said everything that mattered, quietly, without emphasis, as a statement of physical fact rather than opinion. The doctor looked at Chen. Chen looked at the doctor. The doctor decided this was not a battle worth fighting. They treated Naomi for hypothermia. Warm IV fluids, heated blankets. The baby was monitored. Heart rate steady, movement normal. The child was fine. The child was, apparently, indestructible. It had survived a snowstorm, a collapse, and a father who had decided it was a career complication, and it was kicking steadily as if to say, "I'm still here." Naomi opened her eyes at 2:47 a.m. The first thing she saw was a man she didn't recognize sitting in the chair beside her bed. He was in his shirt sleeves, his coat was somewhere. She'd learn later it was the coat wrapped around her, and he was reading something on his phone with the focused attention of a man who did not waste time. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice sounded like sandpaper. He looked up. "Park Jae-won, you called me." "I didn't." "Your phone dialed my private number when you fell. My security traced the call and found you outside Grand Central Terminal at 11:12 p.m. You had been on the ground for approximately 12 minutes. Your core temperature was 94 degrees. Your baby's heart rate was stable." Naomi blinked. "Why do you have a private number that an accidental call can reach?" The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. The possibility of one. "That's an excellent question. I'll have my tech team investigate." "And you just came. You were on the ground in a snowstorm. Someone had to come. 300 people walked past me. 312. The terminal security cameras counted. My legal team has already requested the footage." Naomi's eyes filled. Not with gratitude. She was too exhausted for gratitude. With something older, the recognition of being seen, of mattering to a stranger more than she had mattered to the man who had promised to love her forever. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet. Your husband will be dealt with." He's not. She stopped. "How do you know about my husband?" "Your phone, your name, public records. It took my team 7 minutes to build a complete picture. Brandon Carter, corporate attorney at Hartley and Marsh, filed a change of address 3 weeks ago to an apartment registered to his associate, Lauren Price. Your joint accounts were drained 4 days ago. The car he was driving tonight is leased under your name." Naomi closed her eyes. "He left you at a train station in a snowstorm while carrying his child," Jae-won said. "In my world, there is a word for that. The English translation is insufficient, but the consequences are not. If this story has its hands on you right now, hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and tell me what Brandon deserves." Now let's continue. Brandon showed up at Mount Sinai the next morning. Not out of concern, out of legal strategy. His attorney had called him at 7 a.m. with the news that Naomi had been admitted, that someone had filed a police report regarding her abandonment, and that Grand Central security footage, which clearly showed Brandon's car pulling up, Naomi exiting without a coat, and the car driving away, was now in the possession of people who were not inclined to be understanding. Brandon arrived at the hospital in a fresh suit, carrying flowers, performing the role of a concerned husband with the competence of a man who had been performing roles his entire life. He was stopped at the nurse's station. "I'm here to see my wife, Naomi Carter." "I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Carter's room has restricted access." "Restricted? I'm her husband." "Sir, I understand. But the restriction was placed by me." Jae-won stepped out of the elevator behind Brandon. He was wearing a different suit now, fresh, precise, the suit of a man who had gone home, showered, changed, and returned within an hour because leaving for longer felt like a dereliction. Chen stood behind him. Brandon turned. He saw a Korean man in an expensive suit with a security detail, and his lawyer brain immediately began calculating. Who is this? What does he want? What does he control? How do I manage this? "And you are?" "The person who found your wife in the snow last night, while you were driving home." Brandon's calculations stalled. "I also have the security footage from Grand Central Terminal," Jae-won continued. "Time-stamped. Your license plate is visible. Your face is visible through the windshield. Naomi exits the vehicle without a coat. You drive away. Elapsed time from exit to departure, 9 seconds. You didn't even wait to see if she made it inside. That's not... It's exactly what it is. It's 9 seconds of a man abandoning his pregnant wife in a snowstorm. And it's currently being reviewed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, your firm's ethics board, and, because I believe in thoroughness, 3 journalists who cover family law." Brandon's flowers lowered to his side. You can't do this. It's already done. Everything I've described has already happened. You're not here early enough to stop it. You're here exactly late enough to face it. J1 stepped closer, one step. The step from V17, 408K. The step that made 407,901 people understand that physical proximity, when wielded by certain men, is a weapon more precise than anything metal. Your wife is recovering. Your child is healthy. You are no longer required for either outcome. Brandon looked at the nurses. The nurses looked at their screens. He left, without the flowers. Naomi's daughter was born on January 14th at 6:22 a.m. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Lungs that announced themselves to the delivery room with the indignant fury of a person who had already survived a snowstorm and was unimpressed by the rest of the world's attempts to inconvenience her. Naomi named her Winter, not because of the storm, because of what she'd survived in it. J1 was not in the delivery room. He was in the waiting area, on a chair that was designed for people half his height, reading a document about shipping lane regulations and pretending he wasn't listening to every sound from behind the door. When the nurse came out and said, "Mother and baby are healthy," J1 set down the document and exhaled for what felt like the first time in 3 weeks. He visited the room an hour later. Naomi was holding Winter, exhausted and radiant, her natural hair fanned across the pillow. "Would you like to hold her?" Naomi asked. He hesitated. Park J1, who had held territorial negotiations, who had held the balance of East Asian commerce in his hands, who had held a collapsing woman in a snowstorm without flinching, hesitated at the offer of a 7-pound infant. He held out his arms. Naomi placed Winter in them. The baby opened her eyes, dark, enormous, unfocused. She looked up at the man holding her with the evaluative stare of someone conducting a preliminary assessment. "She has your determination," J1 said. "She has her own determination. I just provided the housing." He smiled. Naomi had not seen him smile before. It changed his entire face, softened the jaw, warmed the eyes, revealed the boy from Incheon who had lost his mother to a winter that came too fast and help that came too late. "My mother died in the snow," he said. He didn't plan to say it. The words arrived on their own, pulled out by the gravity of a newborn stare. "I was 12. She collapsed outside our apartment, hypothermia. The ambulance took 47 minutes. Naomi's hand went to her mouth. "I have spent 22 years building a world where I control everything. Schedules, outcomes, timing. Because if I control the timing, no one arrives 47 minutes too late." He looked at Winter. "I found you in 12 minutes. I will not be late again." J1. "You don't owe me anything. You don't have to stay. You don't have to feel anything you don't feel. But I need you to know that my door, every door I own, is open to you and to Winter. For as long as you need, with no conditions." Naomi looked at this man, a stranger 3 weeks ago, now the person who had carried her out of the snow, fought off her husband's legal machinery, sat in a waiting room at 6 a.m. for a child that wasn't his. And she understood something about the difference between the man who had promised her forever and the man who had simply shown up. "Stay," she said. "Not in the waiting room. Here, stay." He sat down. Winter fell asleep in his arms. And outside the hospital window, it was snowing again. But this time, the cold couldn't reach them. If this story broke you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. What moment hit you the hardest? Was it the snow was the only thing still touching her? Was it 312 people walking past? Was it the baby kicking against his hand? Was it 9 seconds? Was it "My mother died in the snow"? Or was it the name, Winter? Tell me, I read every single comment. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes the person who saves your life is a stranger whose number you never meant to call. I'll see you in the next story.